Hey everyone, welcome back to Stars and Stories, the show where we don't just skim the headlines, we crack them open, dig into the glitter, sift through the gossip, and explore the galaxy-sized personalities that make Hollywood sparkle and sometimes combust. I'm your host, Langat, and today's story is one of those rare moments where celebrity gossip feels less like idle chatter and more like the opening act of a binge-worthy drama series. Picture this. The sun setting over Beverly Hills, casting golden light on palm-lined streets, while behind closed doors and velvet ropes, murmurs ripple through the city's most exclusive circles. It starts as a whisper at a private dinner table, slips into casual conversation at a rooftop party, and eventually leaks into the ever-watchful court of Instagram comments. The subject? None other than Corey Gamble and Kris Jenner, two figures who have spent nearly a decade together in the orbit of the Kardashian dynasty, potentially heading for what some are calling a very public collision course. The buzz isn't just about a romantic spat or a lover's disagreement. No, this has all the makings of a high-stakes standoff. One where millions of dollars could be at stake, reputations might be reshaped, and long-guarded secrets could find their way into the spotlight. In a town where image is currency and privacy is a luxury, this story feels like it could shift the balance of both. And if the rumours swirling through Hollywood's social circles hold even a grain of truth, we might be watching the early chapters of one of the most talked-about celebrity separations in years. So here's the scoop, and it's piping hot. Word on the street is that Kris Jenner, the woman who practically invented the concept of turning family drama into primetime ratings, is allegedly running out of patience with her longtime partner, Corey Gamble. We're talking about the ultimate momager here, a woman who can juggle business empires, brand deals, and birthday extravaganzas without breaking a manicured nail. And yet, even she might be ready to draw the curtain on this particular chapter of her personal life. But if you think Corey is the type to simply smile, nod, and slip quietly into the Calabasas night without a fuss, you might want to think again. Sources suggest Corey is digging his heels in, making it very clear that he's not going anywhere without what he considers a fair and possibly very hefty compensation package for the nearly 10 years he spent by Kris's side. From his point of view, those years weren't just about luxury vacations and red carpet appearances. They were an investment, and he's expecting a return. Some insiders have gone so far as to frame this as the early stages of a celebrity Cold War, with Corey allegedly ready to play hardball if negotiations don't go his way. And then there's the title floating around, Corey Gamble, Talent Agent. For some, it's a legitimate descriptor of his past career moves. For others, it's the punchline to a running joke, because when people start asking, exactly what talent has he been managing all these years? The most consistent answer seems to be, well, he's been excellent at holding Kris's designer purses at the Met Gala while still managing to get photographed. Now here's where the story takes a sharp turn from ordinary celebrity gossip into something that could send shockwaves through Hollywood. The whispers getting passed around suggest that Corey Gamble might be toying with the idea of writing a tell-all memoir. Yes, you heard that right. A full-scale, no-holds-barred insider's chronicle of his years alongside Kris Jenner and the sprawling Kardashian-Jenner empire. And if even half of those whispers are accurate, the publishing industry is probably already drafting contracts, picturing a glossy hardcover sitting at the front of every bookstore in America, and imagining the headlines it would generate the second the manuscript leaks. Think about it. Corey has spent nearly a decade not just attending parties, but living inside the innermost circle of one of the most famous and most carefully managed families in entertainment. He's been there for the private victories and public scandals, the moments before the cameras roll, and the sighs after the cameras cut. He's walked through the guarded gates of the Calabasas estates, where deals are made over wine and dinners, and where conversations are likely more unfiltered than the show ever lets on. And then there's that ever-present talking point, the age gap. Kris at 69, Corey at 44, it's been discussed, debated and dissected by fans and critics alike since the beginning. But while the tabloids have obsessed over the numbers, the real question now is, how much has Corey actually seen and heard in that time? We're not just talking about a few juicy anecdotes. Rumours point to public arguments, high-profile tensions, and whispered family dramas that only someone truly embedded in the inner workings of the Kardashian machine would know. If he's willing to talk about those moments in print, the potential for explosive revelations is enormous, and the fallout could be just as headline-worthy as the book itself. We're not just talking about whispered tension exchanged behind mansion doors or subtle shade passed in coded Instagram captions. No, this friction has spilled over into some of the most public, high-profile settings imaginable, where the only thing more abundant than champagne is the number of watchful eyes ready to report every raised eyebrow. Reports claim Kris and Corey have been spotted mid-disagreement at events where the guest lists are tighter than the security, and the stakes for maintaining a perfect image are sky-high. Take Jeff Bezos' opulent wedding in Venice, Italy, for example. This wasn't your average backyard ceremony, it was a who's who of billionaires, celebrities and power players. Yet, instead of quietly mingling under the Italian sun, Kris and Corey allegedly found themselves in the middle of a spat that was hard to ignore. Guests may not have heard every word, but they saw enough to know this wasn't just a casual exchange. And when whispers start in a room like that, they tend to leave with the guests and travel fast. Then, just a few weeks later, the pattern reportedly repeated itself, this time in the VIP section at Beyoncé's Cowboy Carter concert. Imagine it. Lights flashing, music shaking the stadium, A-listers swaying to the beat. And in the midst of it all, Kris walking away from Corey with an expression that said she'd had enough, leaving him standing there visibly frustrated. Eyewitnesses claim the cause of these public blow-ups has ranged from pointed personal comments to playful but barbed remarks about appearances, remarks that, depending on the tone, can feel less like banter and more like a jab. Whatever the root cause, one thing is certain. These disagreements aren't staying hidden, and when your relationship starts unraveling in plain sight, the public is bound to take notice. Now let's take a step back and remember exactly who we're dealing with here. Kris Jenner is not just a businesswoman, she's an architect of empires, a strategist so skilled that she could probably sit across from world leaders and broker peace treaties between countries just by offering them a cocktail and a branding deal. Her ability to turn personal moments, whether they're milestones or meltdowns, into marketable storylines has made her one of the most influential figures in entertainment. And woven into that reputation is something she's become equally famous for: her ironclad control over information. Kris is legendary for the contracts she puts in place with anyone who crosses into the Kardashian inner circle. We're talking non-disclosure agreements that are tighter than Fort Knox, meticulously designed to ensure that what happens behind those Calabasas gates stays there, unless she decides it's time for the world to know. That means if Corey is seriously planning to open up, whether in a memoir or in any other public forum, he's not just risking a raised eyebrow from Kris, he's potentially stepping into a legal minefield that she's had years to prepare. But here's the other side of the coin. Sources close to Corey suggest he's not coming at this from a place of petty spite. Instead, they say he's feeling undervalued after nearly a decade in the trenches with Kris, both personally and publicly. In his mind, he hasn't just been her boyfriend, he's been her emotional anchor, the one she could lean on when the cameras were off and the pressure was on. He's been her confidant during quiet moments and, according to him, her shield during some of the family's most intense public storms. From his perspective, those years of loyalty, discretion and presence deserve acknowledgement, not just in words but in the form of a financial settlement that reflects the role he's played. This is where the real standoff seems to be forming. Kris, the master of control, facing Corey, the man who feels he's earned his due. And in Hollywood, when pride, money and carefully guarded reputations collide, the fallout is never small. So, will this end with a discreet settlement, a sensational bestseller, or a public feud worthy of its own Keeping Up style spin-off? Only time will tell. What's certain is that when Kris Jenner is involved, nothing happens without a strategy. And when Corey Gamble feels cornered, he might just decide to make the spotlight work for him. That's it for today's episode of Stars and Stories. I'm Langert, your guide through the tangled constellations of celebrity life. Until next time, keep your ears open and your tea hot.